Everyone thought the janitor was invisible until the day he quietly walked into the boardroom and solved a $200 million crisis the company's top executives couldn't explain. But what the CEO did next left the entire country speechless. The night shift always felt heavier for Daniel Ruiz, a single dad who worked as a janitor at Halcyon Technologies. The massive steel and glass building glowed with power and wealth, but Daniel moved through it quietly, pushing his cart while thinking about the lunchbox he still needed to pack for his daughter, Emily. He'd been juggling two worlds, one of mops, buckets, and low wages, and the other of bedtime stories, math homework, and his promise to Emily that he'd give her a life better than the one he grew up in. Despite everything, he never complained. Not when his wife left without warning. Not when the bills kept coming. Not when Emily asked why he never took a day off to rest. He simply smiled and said, "Because I'm building our future." What no one at Halcyon knew was that Daniel wasn't always a janitor. Years ago, he had been a data systems analyst, sharp, intuitive, and ambitious. But when Emily fell ill and hospital bills drowned everything he had, he took whatever job paid immediately. The janitor job did. He never updated his resume again. On this particular night, he heard something unusual from the 34th floor, the floor no one at his level was ever supposed to enter. He froze when he heard raised voices, panic, and footsteps running in every direction. Curiosity tugged at him harder than fear, so he slowly wheeled his cart closer. Through the glass wall of the biggest conference room, he saw the most powerful people in the company gathered around glowing screens. Their faces were pale. The CEO, Victoria Hale, a woman known for her brilliance and unshakable confidence, looked shaken for the first time Daniel had ever seen. Fragments of their argument echoed through the hallway. "It's gone, $200 million, missing from our primary data vault. If investors find out, we're ruined, done. System malfunction or sabotage? We can't trace it." Daniel's heart began pounding. He recognized the flashing red interface on their screens. It was the same custom-built system he had once worked on 8 years ago in another company, one he helped design before his world collapsed. He had no right to step in. He could lose his job for just standing outside this floor. But while he debated what to do, a desperate thought entered his mind. What if they fire people? What if I lose this job too? What happens to Emily? Something bold ignited in him. Daniel took a breath, knocked gently, and pushed the door open. Every head snapped toward him. "What are you doing here?" a director snapped. I'm sorry," Daniel said quietly. "I was cleaning the floor and overheard. You're using the Omega-4 vault system. I know how it works. I think I can help." A few people laughed. One shook his head. "You're a janitor," someone muttered. "This is a multi-million-dollar crisis. Leave." But Victoria Hale didn't look away from Daniel. Instead, she really studied him as if trying to understand why he talked with such certainty. "How do you know that system?" she asked slowly. Daniel swallowed. "I helped build its architecture, before my daughter got sick. Before my life changed." Silence. No one expected that. Victoria gestured toward the screen. "Show me what you know." The room went breathlessly still as Daniel stepped forward. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the terminal, but the moment his fingers touched the keys, something inside him switched back on. Calm. Precision. Purpose. Lines of code scrolled rapidly. Executives exchanged confused glances. Daniel worked faster and faster, his eyes narrowing as he traced the anomaly hidden deep in the vault's redundancy loop, a silent error that duplicated a false bandwidth surge, triggering auto-lockdown and misrouting the ledger data to an unreachable shadow partition. After 20 intense minutes, Daniel exhaled, tapped a final command, and said quietly, "Your $200 million isn't missing. It's trapped behind its own security protocol. It should be back, now." Gasps exploded around the room as the screens flashed green. Funds recovered. Data restored. Crisis neutralized. Everyone turned speechless. But Daniel didn't wait for applause. He stepped back, lowered his head, and murmured, "I'm sorry if I overstepped. He began rolling his cart toward the door. All he wanted was to go home to Emily, tell her he survived another day, and keep their world together. He didn't expect the CEO to follow him. But she did. The hallway was quiet except for the faint hum of the elevators as Victoria Hale approached him. Her heels clicked softly, but her voice was gentle. "Daniel," she said, stopping beside him, "how long have you been working here?" "Almost 3 years," he replied, not meeting her eyes. "I needed steady work." They hired quickly. "You never told anyone about your background?" He shook his head. "Wasn't important. I just needed enough to take care of my daughter." Something in Victoria's expression softened, a rare sight. Power and success had built her reputation, but empathy had never been the trait people used to describe her. Yet in that moment, she looked at Daniel not as a janitor but as a man who had carried years of silent sacrifice. "Do you realize what you just did?" she asked quietly. Daniel shrugged. "I just fixed a system I understood." "No," she whispered. "You saved this company. You saved thousands of jobs. Including mine." Suddenly, senior executives rushed out of the conference room. Cameras were pointed, questions flew, and pressure filled the hallway as reporters began receiving leaked hints of the crisis. Before they could crowd her, Victoria lifted a hand and made a decision that shocked everyone. She turned to Daniel, placed a hand on his shoulder, and said loudly, "This man is the reason Halcyon still stands tonight. Remember his face." Whispers burst through the crowd. "Is she serious? That janitor? How did he?" But Victoria didn't stop. She faced Daniel again. "You don't belong in a janitor uniform. Starting tomorrow, I want you leading a new team, data recovery and system security. Your salary will reflect the position. Full benefits for you and your daughter." Daniel froze. "Ma'am. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," she replied with a kind smile. "And tell your daughter her father is a hero." Tears stung Daniel's eyes, but he blinked them away. He didn't cry in front of powerful people. He had learned long ago to keep his emotions tucked behind quiet determination. But this time, he couldn't help it. That night, he returned home to Emily's small bed lit by a tiny lamp. She was drawing with her crayons, another picture of them together under the sun. "You're home late," she whispered. Daniel knelt, kissed her forehead, and told her, voice unsteady, "Baby, everything's going to change." And for the first time in years, he believed it. Months later, Daniel stood in front of his new team, wearing a badge with his real title. His life had transformed, not by luck, but by courage, the courage to step into a room where he didn't belong and prove that some people shine brightest when the world least expects it. And the CEO's reaction? It became a legend in business schools, news outlets, and leadership seminars, an example of what can happen when someone in power recognizes the invisible hero standing right in front of them. The message echoed far beyond Halcyon's walls. Sometimes the most extraordinary people are the ones the world overlooks. And Daniel Ruiz, single dad, janitor, survivor, became the living proof of it.